And then we go to the anecdotal. You talk about how this idea of a good guy with a gun stopping with a bad guy with a gun, I think is just, you think is incorrect. So obviously you mentioned the Florida shooting. Do you remember the Sutherland Springs shooting? You don't remember the Sutherland Springs? This is not. I'm amazed. It happened here in Texas, and it was more deadly than Florida.
Really?
The church was shut up. Church was shut up in Sutherland Springs outside of San Antonio, Texas. This just happened only a few months ago. Yeah, deadlier shooting.
Well, there's so many been happening.
No. There haven't been so many happening, and this was one of the biggest. Does the name Stephen Williford mean anything to you? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm trying to think of how to frame this here. I don't want to be contentious at all, but I think, let me put it this way. I think it is a tremendous disservice that has been committed against you from the media and probably this educational establishment. For you to be this uninformed on some of these pivotal issues. The Sutherland Springs shooting is more deadly. It was a church that was shot up, okay? In Texas, not that far from here. And Stephen Williford, you don't know him because he wasn't on the news, wasn't a story. I'm sure you've probably seen the high school students, right, from Florida, going around making the rounds. Well, Stephen Williford is the man who stopped the shooter. He stopped the shooter with an AR-15. He was an NRA certified instructor.
Okay.
No town hall. Media didn't talk about it. More deadly shooting happened in your backyard. You don't even know about it. Does that concern you? Because that was a good guy with a gun, stopping a bad guy with a gun.
But then that's just one incident.
Happens all, no, then that's why I'm combining that with the statistical evidence that there are far more lives, as I talked about from the CDC. So the evidence, the preponderance of evidence points to far more lives saved than taken. And I'm just trying to give you an anecdotal example of a more deadly shooting that occurred recently in a place that's closer to you. The media didn't cover.
I mean, then that's really talking alarming. About the media, really, and like what they cover and not.
Well, but the point is, that would be concerning to me. If this is the first time you're learning that the Second Amendment is to protect ourselves against a tyrannical government, I think that's pretty pivotal. I'm kind of surprised I wasn't taught in American history class. I was Canadian. I learned Canadian history, so I felt it's incredibly boring. It's like we said, all right, give, and now we have the Queen on our money. But they don't teach the Second Amendment in American history in schools. I find that concerning. I find it concerning that people think we're in a worse place with guns than ever, that we have more gun crime than ever. I find it concerning that you're clearly a very smart girl, and I don't say that to patronize you. But I find it concerning that someone as articulate, as smart as you, isn't aware of how many lives are saved through use of firearms, why we have the right to firearms, and then, in particular, a news story that the media really should go gaga over that occurred in your home state where you are studying, where a man saved lives with a firearm.
But isn't it? I'm so sorry.
No, I was just saying that's very. I find that very. Does that not?
I know it is quite concerning, but isn't it more concerning that? I was doing research on this last night, but because according to I think United Nations and the Human Development Index that in the United States we're 22.9 times more. Have 22.9 more homicides per million people than, say, Germany or Switzerland, which was like 7.7 and like I think 9 for both of those. So isn't that more alarming as well?
Well, I think you're referring to gun homicide.
Right.
Yeah. Because violent crime rates...
Gun-related homicides.
Yeah, I think what's important to compare... First off, one thing I do have to say, and I'll go along with that, just for the sake of us having this discussion, violent crime rates are difficult to compare across countries because there are different standards, kind of like infant mortality rates.
Right.
People have different standards for what actually is considered an infant. But violent crime is actually higher and has seen a worse trend in places like the UK than in the United States. And in Sweden, particularly, and in Germany, things like rape have been increasing while they've actually been going down in the United States. These are very alarming crimes. Now, if you're just talking about gun crime, okay, but you're 19 times more likely to be stabbed than shot. Again, the numbers are so minimal, but the media focuses on it. I think it's more important to focus on the overall crime trends and violent crime, not the tool of the crime. Because if you're going to attribute all of these issues to an inanimate object and ignore the totality of evidence, I think you're looking in the wrong place.
Okay, I understand that.
And also something else. I mean, keep in mind that, we're also the only place out of all those places you mentioned that has freedom of speech, where you can't be jailed for saying something offensive. So that's Amendment number 1.
Okay.
And Amendment number 2.
All right.
Don't own a firearm. So it comes down to, I think, your fundamental view of human rights, and then the statistical data and realities of gun violence, and where you line up on that. But sounds to me like you're doing some research. Hopefully you continue to do more. I really do encourage you to fact check me after this.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, I had like a document there. I just like straight up forgot it.
You can just tweet me and tell me if you think I'm, like, hey, you were wrong, you suck, and I get that all the time. But I don't think you probably. I know you seem like a very nice person. So, would that though, if you go and you do this research and everything that I've said here, let's say, is mostly true, does it maybe change your view a little bit?
Probably not within this discussion. Like as shortly, I can't just radically change my views.
No, not within this discussion. But if you go home and do this research and
because then I have more context.
Okay.
But probably not now. I'm still
no. I don't want you to right now. That's also why I don't think we should be proposing legislation right now. I don't think an emotive response, a knee-jerk response, is conducive toward productive legislation in any capacity, or even productive formation of opinions. So I don't want you to knee-jerk. I don't want you to develop an opinion right now. Sit, let it percolate a little bit, go do some research. I would encourage you to look up the Sutherland Springs shooting. I would encourage you to Google CDC lives saved firearms or CDC defensive use firearms, and see where you line up.